How many queens have ever brought an empire to its knees? In the heart of ancient Central Asia, where mountains towered and steppes stretched out, where winds howled like razor-sharp blades across the sky, a female warrior made her mark with a bloody deed. But not the blood of commoners, but that of the most powerful king of her time. It was Tamiris, queen of the Massagetae tribe, who planned and executed a brutal revenge against Cyrus the Great that forever scarred his legacy. But to understand why, we must begin with Cyrus himself. In the 6th century BC, when Rome was still a small city-state and Athens was just beginning its experiments with democracy, a colossal power was emerging in the east. Under Cyrus II, the Persian Empire extended from the Mediterranean coast to the Hindu Kush mountains, and from the Caucasus down to the southern Gulfs. The scale of this empire, controlled by a single individual, was unprecedented in human history. Cyrus was hailed as a benevolent king, but behind the veil of benevolence was cold calculation. He did not kill indiscriminately, not because he was benevolent, but because he understood that blood was not always the most effective way to establish order. Allowing peoples to retain their native religion, customs, and leaders was a means, not an end. When he took Babylon, he did not destroy the city but freed the Jews, an act inscribed on the Cyrus cylinder, which is still in use today, is considered an early declaration of human rights. However, Cyrus's tolerance was not necessarily motivated by moral ideals. The preservation of local identity helped consolidate his power, and his image as a shrewd liberator masked his boundless political ambitions. Can a man's ambition devour the souls of those who refuse to be subdued? Cyrus the Great, feared by the ancient world, never knew the concept of enough. With each kingdom that knelt, the fire of conquest burned more fiercely within him. More territory to rule, more people to subdue, more glory to carve his name in stone. In 530 BC, after crushing countless once brilliant civilizations, his eyes turned north across the Jaxart, today's Sirdaria, to a place where neither wind nor earth feared, the Central Asian steppe. A people without citadels, without castles, only the high sky, the cold wind and endless freedom, the Massagetae. They lived in the wild and fought like the fierce, untamed nature itself. And at their head was a woman, the widow of a fallen king. But her power and pride were no less than any monarch's name. She was Tamiris, and for Cyrus, that name would become a curse. History did not record her name because she was unworthy, but because the writers never thought that a woman could make an empire tremble. But Tamiris did not need history books. She wrote her own story with blood, steel, and courage. She did not succeed because of blood, but because the whole warrior community chose her. They did not call her queen, they called her leader. Cyrus, as always, began sweetly. The messenger was sent with a proposal of marriage in the name of a glorious alliance, but in reality it was a golden collar to chain a wild beast. Tamiris would be made queen, but a caged queen of the Persian Empire. Her people would be integrated, meaning subdued without resistance. A bloodless conquest because the blood had dried up in subjugation. Tamiris saw through the glossy words, saw the claws hidden behind the glove's silk. And she answered not with the words of a woman, but with the declaration of a free queen. She would not marry a conqueror. Her people would never bow to tyranny. For Cyrus, the refusal was not just an insult, it was a knife cut into the pride of one who had never been told no. How could a woman, a wandering people, dare defy him? In a rage as hot as iron, Cyrus called out his army. He would not let a petty queen sully his glory. The Persians crossed the Jaxartes River, trampling the grass of the sacred land. But the bad news soon reached Tamiris, and she did not flee, did not negotiate. Instead, she sent the delusional king a message as sharp as a knife. "King of the Persians, abandon your plans, for you cannot know whether the end will be good. Rule your people, and let me rule mine. But I know you will not accept this advice, because you do not know what it means to live in peace." Ignoring all the signs Tamiris had warned, his words were ignored. Cyrus marched north, building bridges across the Jaxartes River, now the Sirdaria, to penetrate the land of the Massagetae. Rather than confront them directly, she allowed the Persian army to penetrate into territory familiar to her, but completely foreign and unfamiliar to the invaders. And Cyrus's mistake was born of complacency and underestimation of his opponent. Advised by Croesus, the former king of Lydia, now Cyrus's close advisor, devised a plan to exploit what he saw as a cultural weakness. The Massagetae's inexperience with wine, a beverage not common in their nomadic tradition. He set up a simple camp, leaving behind only a few low-ranking soldiers with wine and plenty of provisions, then pretended to withdraw. As expected, a Massagetae scouting force, led by Prince Spargapises, son of Queen Tamyris, discovered the camp, attacked it, and easily captured it, not knowing that the victory feast was a trap. Unaccustomed to strong wine, they fell into drunkenness. At midnight, when their vigilance was lost in the wine, Cyrus returned. The nomadic warriors, unable to defend themselves in that state, were quickly subdued. Many died on the spot. Others were captured alive, including Spargapises. When he regained consciousness and realized that he had been used as a tool to destroy his own people, Spargapises did not scream, did not beg. He only asked for death, and when Cyrus agreed, he ended his life with his own hands. No one in the Persian camp forgot the last look in the young man's eyes, not of fear, but of contempt. When that sad news reached Tamiris, it did not break her, but awakened in her a cold, deep, and unquenchable fire of anger. She sent a messenger to Cyrus with a message warning dripping with contempt. "Bloody man, do not boast of your recent victory. It was not by force or justice, but by the poison with which you are addicted to wine that you captured my son. That is not a victory, but a humiliation. Withdraw from my territory, depart, and consider the capture of a third of my army by deceit as a stain to be erased. If you refuse, I swear by the son of the god worshipped by the Massagetae that I will repay this blood debt, however bottomless your thirst may be." What is the price of arrogant cruelty? Cyrus was not intoxicated by wine, but by his own self-made reputation. Having ruled Babylon, defeated Lydia, and subdued Egypt, he saw any opponent, even a female leader of the steppe, as a temporary obstacle on the path to his glorious expansion. With undying faith in his destiny, Cyrus ignored all warnings and continued his campaign north. However, his confidence quickly led to one of the greatest defeats in the history of the Persian Empire. Tamiris, queen of the Massagetae, a coalition of warlike nomadic tribes, gathered her army to face the threat from the south. Hardened by the harsh life of the vast steppe, her warriors could ride continuously for days and shoot accurately from great distances. They knew every hillock and every wind of the land the Persians had just set foot on. The clash that followed, it was no ordinary battle, but a decisive confrontation between two opposing worlds. The Persian army, famous for its heavy infantry and siege techniques developed during its campaigns in Mesopotamia, was at a loss in the open environment of the steppe. Here, the Massagetae cavalry easily exploited the terrain to launch lightning attacks and then quickly retreat before the Persians could counterattack effectively. Cyrus, with the bravery that had made his name, personally led the counterattacks. However, he could not turn the tide against an enemy that was agile, knew the battlefield well, and was filled with the rage of a mother who had lost her child. In the midst of fierce fighting, the unexpected happened. Cyrus was killed. The king who had built one of the greatest empires of antiquity fell on foreign lands across the Jaxartes River. His downfall was not only military, but also had a great impact on the world. Symbol. According to Herodotus, his body was found among the corpses of his soldiers, and Tamiris, not only victorious but also keeping her oath of vengeance, ordered his beheading. She took a leather bag filled with blood and dipped Cyrus's head in it, declaring that she would quench his bloodlust, a grim symbol of justice and vengeance. This act, though cruel, carried enormous symbolic weight. It etched into the collective memory that even the most powerful men could not escape the consequences of unbridled ambition. The image of the head dipped in blood was more than just a punishment. It was a warning about hubris, the limits of power, and how history can be written in blood. However, like all ancient stories, the authenticity of this detail is still subject to debate. Herodotus wrote about the event nearly a century after it took place, based on oral traditions, while Persian inscriptions say Cyrus was buried at Massagetae, suggesting that his body had been recovered, contradicting the beheading story. Some modern scholars believe that the Greeks embellished the story to portray the victory of the barbarians over their ancient enemy, Persia. Others believe that the image of a woman defeating a great emperor was a powerful moral metaphor for the fall of pride. However, the actual existence of the Massagetae is undeniable. Archaeological evidence suggests that they were a highly organized nomadic confederacy, and historical sources other than Herodotus, such as the Roman historian Justin, confirm Tamiris's role in the victory. Justin describes her not as a vengeful mother, but as a queen, defending her land and the honor of her nation. Cyrus's death left a deep power vacuum. His son, Cambyses II, took over the throne, but lacked his father's leadership. Instead of consolidating the empire, Cambyses was obsessed with the dream of conquering Egypt. This led to a neglect of internal affairs. And after his death, a period of chaos followed before Darius I ascended the throne and restored order. As for Tamiris, her fate after her great victory remains unclear. As is often the case in ancient history, the accounts focus on the men in power and rarely follow the lives of women, no matter how great their achievements. Some legends say she ruled peacefully for many years, keeping enemies at bay. Others say she was overthrown by rival tribes. What all stories have in common, however, is that she left an indelible mark. Tamiris was not the mother or wife of a famous man. She was her own hero, who made the world remember her name not because she belonged to someone, but because she defeated the head of one of the most powerful empires in history. In an era when women were marginalized in power, she demonstrated that talent and leadership could. When we look back at the dusty pages of history, we often honor those who built empires, but forget those who dared to stop them. Tamiris left no throne, nor did she found a dynasty, but she left an indelible mark, a limit. The limit beyond which power must not be allowed to pass, and where arrogance must stop. Without monuments or epics, her actions became a living message that has endured for centuries. The victory over Cyrus was not just the fall of an emperor, but the overthrow of an illusion that glory always belongs to the strong. Because sometimes history is not written in the blood of conquerors, but in the courage to refuse to submit. And that is why Tamiris' name still echoes, not in the trumpets of victory, but in the weighty silence of historical justice.